Hi guys, this is J.E. Perazzi, speculative fiction author, writer of the Malfunction Trilogy and the Raven Tree Society, acquisitions editor for the Phoenix Fiction Writers. And I'm here with, this is kind of my official first AuthorTube video. I know I've done AuthorTube tags, but this is my first hey, let's just go at it, and I'm going to give you guys some tips that I have learned since being published almost 2 years now, which is crazy. So today I'm going to be talking to you guys about the basics of building your author platform. We keep it really chill here. If you are watching live and want to ask some questions, go ahead and drop them in the comments, and I will answer them between my points, unless I corrected, in which case I might just forget about my points and go off rambling, because I do that. And I decided to start with this one, not because I think this is the first thing you need to consider when you are looking at being a writer. I think especially when you're writing your first book, you need to just be able to enjoy the process, learn how to write well, how to interact with other readers. But I think that if you have found this video, you're probably either someone who enjoys my writing, or you are someone who has been searching through YouTube for a very, very long time, because I'm definitely not up there looking for author resources, which you wouldn't do if you weren't considering turning this into a career. So this is, I think, when you start considering this part of things, when you're to the point in your career where you're considering your author platform and whatnot, you should already have a book finished. You should already have some ideas of where you're going. So if you're not ready for that, I mean, go ahead and listen. But this is a little bit more of the advanced side of basics, if that makes sense. Like, I'm not going to be talking about how to create a character or how to build a world. We're talking about the business aspect, I guess. So my first point in here is to know what you want and build your career accordingly. So I think before you start looking into building social media and websites and looking into pitching to of course, now that I'm live streaming, my brain can't work. Pitching to agents. Thank you. To agents, or uploading it onto Amazon, or whichever way you decide to go. Before you start considering any of those things, you need to sit down and think about what you want out of your writing career. So for me personally, I chose to brand myself as a speculative fiction author because I didn't want to get shoehorned into either science fiction or fantasy. A lot of times you're going to sell best if you're working in a certain subgenre. Like, there are some readers who are only going to want to read science fiction, and they're only going to want to read a certain kind of science fiction. And if you write something other than that, if you get all your readers from one kind of science fiction, you start writing something else, you may lose some readers. But if you make it really clear up front, look, I'm going to write some science fiction, I'm going to write some horror, I'm going to write some fantasy, you're going to have a little bit of a better bet. People are going to know what to expect. So you don't want to let down people with your expectations. So that's just one example. You're going to want to think about what kind of books you're going to write, what you want out of things. Do you want to be making money? Do you want to go full time? Do you want to be making movies? Do you want to be famous? Are you just doing this because you have a book that you love and that you want to get out there for readers? Any of these things that you're going to be looking at, you're going to be choosing different things, whether you're going to go traditionally published or self-published, whether you're going to have a website first thing or whether you're going to wait on that, whether you're going to use one kind of social media or another. For instance, Instagram works great for YA authors, but not so well if you're in the adult category. All these things are things you want to consider when you're first starting. So my first suggestion is, when you're sitting down as a newbie author who's considering making this a career, is just to get a handle on what you want out of it. What's your end game, what's your goal, and then build according to that. So that is tip number one, know what you want. Tip number 2, and you've heard me say multiple times, career, business. The second tip is to be business-minded. And I think that's really hard for us creatives. Some people find it a little bit easier than others. And business does involve a lot of creativity and a lot of thinking outside of the box. And it can be really fun for some people. But for others of us, you know, there's a disproportionate amount of introverts who are authors and artists. There's a lot of people who are not so good with math, not so good with money, who don't want to worry about marketing. In fact, a lot of people are going to choose traditionally published for this actual reason. And I would say do your research before you do that, because you're going to have to market your own work there as well. But when you are looking at selling your work to people, you can't expect to just upload something on Amazon or get it published and have people go get it and, you know, read it and for it to become super popular. No matter how good your book is, you have to put in some marketing, because people are not going to buy something that they don't know exists if they can't find it. So you're going to have to set aside this part of your brain that is able to look at the end product of your writing as a career, as a business. So everything that goes before publishing, that is your creativity, that is your artist side, that is your, what is it? Right side, is it? Left side? I'm not even sure, because I know one side of your brain is more into the creative stuff supposedly and the other one's more business minded. But you're going to be able to look at your publishing and selling as a career, as a business. And the more you're able to do that, the better you're going to be able to sell your books. The better you're going to be able to handle criticism and bad reviews. The better you're going to be able to set aside time for things like your website and for your marketing and for advertisements. All those kind of things are extremely important. And if you come at it through a perspective as an artist, as a writer, you're going to have a much harder time dealing with those things, because you're in love with your work. You want to just throw it out there and be like, people, I created this beautiful thing, come marvel at it with me. And most people are not going to want to do that. Maybe your mom, which is why a lot of, especially self-published authors, will publish their books and be like, yeah, my mom and my dad bought a copy and that's about it. So the second tip is to be business-minded when you're looking at your career. Tip number 3, start early. So whether you're going traditionally published or self-published, you're going to want to, as soon as you get the first steps down, as soon as you figure out what you're doing, and you're able to set aside that business-minded aspect of your writing, you're going to want to get started. Now, some people start before they even begin their first draft, but I would say, you know, as soon as you're aware, you're going to want to get started. Get your social media going, get your Twitter handle, get your Facebook, all those kind of things, get those up and running. If you're traditionally published, agents and publishers are going to be looking at your followers. This is just how it is these days. They expect you to already have people following you on Twitter. They expect you to already have a voice so that you can be selling your work too. They're going to depend on you for that. If you're going to be an indie author, a lot is going to be riding on those first publications. So you're going to want to be front-ending all of this, building your readership, getting people excited for your book before it's even published. I would say the most important things you need to be thinking about at this point, pick at least one social media that you're going to hit hard, whether that's Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, wherever you feel most comfortable, wherever you know best, wherever you know you're going to be able to get the audience. Your website is really important, especially if you're going to be an indie author. And I would say newsletter, or another way for you to directly speak and interact with your readers, somewhere that's set apart from social media, where people are going to have to deliberately seek you out. newsletter is extremely important, especially for indie authors. And I would say as soon as possible, start on that. But I know some indie authors who use other platforms. I have one friend who's switching everything over to some gaming stuff. What's that called? Similar to Slack. It's like I said, now that I'm live streaming, my brain doesn't work. I know other indie authors who focus on their websites or who have chat rooms on their websites, those sorts of things. There's ways to reach your audience without having a newsletter, but if you're going to be on social media, whether it's Facebook or Twitter or Instagram, you're depending on that site to connect you to your readers. And if for any reason your posts get drowned or it becomes pay to play like Facebook did not too long ago, where now you have to boost your posts in order to have even your followers see it, all those things are going to just kill you because your readers are depending on that to interact with you. Whereas if you have a newsletter or if you have something similar like a chat room, you can connect with them directly. I just got a comment here from Rob Nugent. Thank you for watching, Rob. He says Twitch or Discord. Discord is what I was thinking of. I know an author who uses Discord, and that's working out really well for her. Okay, so that is point number 3. Get started early as you have the ability to. Point number 4, keep your social media presence professional. I think one of the biggest problems with authors who have these social media channels who are not able to get that professional or that business mindset is a lot of times they're going to just kind of pour out all their negative feelings onto, especially Twitter I've seen, but Facebook, other things. I've seen some authors who just talk about how horrible their writing is and how they hate their books and they're a horrible writer, and then they expect to be able to sell those books. But if you're going and telling all your readers how crappy of a writer you are, and then you're like, hey, buy my book, it sucks, buy my book, no one's going to want to put money into that. Or if you're constantly complaining about other authors, you're going to have a really, really hard time connecting with them. You're going to have a really hard time working with them. If you are going on Twitter and blasting agents who don't accept your book, it's a tight-knit community. You're going to have a hard time getting agents after that, especially if they know you're going to badmouth them. So keep your social media presence professional. You can be honest, you can be real, you can be personable, you can even share things like pictures of your cats and kids without letting this negative side of your life just pour out. It's not that you always have to be happy and that you can't ever complain, but keep it professional. Don't go bad-mouthing people. Don't go complaining about your writing. Don't go complaining about other authors. Yeah. Rob Nugent left another comment, said, okay, I'm hearing that from a lot of people wanting to use Discord these days. And he said, sorry for jumping in late. Don't worry. You can rewatch it whenever you want to. It's just good to have you here. Yeah, there's been a lot of people picking up on Discord. I've considered it myself. It's an excellent alternative to a newsletter because it's much more free and direct, less one-sided. My zombie cat here, don't worry, she's not sick or dying, she just has a flea allergy. Okay, so point number 5, research. I highly suggest getting in there and listening to podcasts, asking other authors what they do, whatever you're most comfortable with. I know some authors personally who are not so big into research, but they will come and ask me. I'm perfectly fine with that. A lot of, especially indie authors, are really eager to share their knowledge and answer your questions and help you out because, especially in the indie community, authors are really tight-knit. They recommend each other's books. They know that a reader does not just read one book, so we don't view it as competition. Or even in the traditionally published world, if you go asking authors, what they did, a lot of times they're going to be willing to respond and talk to you. So do your research. Think about things before you act. You know, if you're going to be putting out a newsletter, do your research. If you're going to be putting out a website, do your research. Just make sure you are thinking things through before you act, or you're going to be falling down some deep, deep, dark holes, especially when it comes to spending money. So tip number 5, research. Tip number 6, don't brand your social media or your website off of a single book. Now, there are authors who plan to write only one series, or plan to write only one series in that pen name. And I think that that's definitely different. Say if you're going to be writing, you know, one huge long fantasy epic that's going to be, you know, 20, 30 books or for the rest of your life, and you brand your social media or your Facebook or your website after that series of books, that's going to help you out a lot, because readers are going to be searching that book and looking for you and finding you. However, if you're going to be writing multiple different books, even if, say, they're all science fiction or all fantasy, and you put on your Twitter, the world of Adalea, let's just throw that one out there, and then you start writing a science fiction series, and that gets really popular, and people are looking for you under your author name, they're not going to be able to find you. And then you're going to have to go ahead and switch everything over to an author name. You're going to have to change everything, all of your branding. It's going to make it very difficult, especially where it comes to websites and whatnot. There was a popular self-published author, an author tuber recently, who had to go through this because she branded everything after her first book that came out, and then when her second book came out, it was much more popular, and she had to rebrand everything after her author name. So I see this mistake a lot with new writers, that they'll publish something and they'll be like, oh, I'm going to throw everything under the title of this book. But when you are looking at this as a career, you yourself are your brand. So me, J.E. Perazzi, that is my brand. That is my author name. I'm not going to put everything under the Malfunction Trilogy, because I'm not going to be writing just the Malfunction Trilogy or just cyberpunk for the rest of my career. So that is what was that, 6? 6, don't brand your social media and your website after a single book. So my last tip, you are not a brand. You are not a machine. Find what you have that's unique and build off of that. So I've seen a lot of people get into this branding, this marketing, and really get bogged down with having to put on this professional face for everything. You live your life on social media. You have to, you know, have this checklist. I've done this myself. Oh, I have to go here. I have to do this. I have to take this picture. I haven't done this today. And just shape your life around that. I especially find this a lot in the indie publishing community, because algorithms make it so that you have to be publishing a lot. And not only you have to be publishing a lot, not only do you have to be publishing a lot, you also have to be publishing under different pen names. So there are some authors out there who are publishing, you know, romance as well as science fiction, as well as historical fiction, and they're having to run multiple pen names in order to juggle all of this. There are some authors out there who are putting out a book a month, who just get exhausted, they get sick, they get terrified that they're going to lose their income, and they start, you know, hiring ghostwriters. They start taking, this is why I need to write everything out, or not do it at the end of the day. That's probably a better. They start stealing other people's work. We saw this recently. There was this big drama in romance, because romance is a very hungry genre. A lot of people are reading really quickly. So we see a lot of burnout, especially in indie authors who are publishing so fast. And in some ways, yes, you need to be able to have a good backlist. You need to be able to keep working and treating this as a job, and not just saying, I'm not going to write today because I don't feel like it. But on the other hand, if you start turning your life into this publishing machine, not only are you going to get burnt out and not going to be able to keep writing, publishing is not a career where you're going to make a ton of money. And if you don't enjoy it, honestly, there are better places to be spending your time. There are already so many books out there, it's really hard to make your voice heard. And that's not to say don't publish, don't write, because you're not going to be able to make it. What I'm saying is, if you make your life, if you condense your life down to just branding and publishing and getting the next book out as soon as possible, you're going to have a miserable time. And you might as well go wash dishes and make pretty much the same amount, unless you're a really popular author. So don't distill your life down to publishing and branding. It's a business, but it's also a lot of fun. Being able to create worlds, create characters, interact with people who love what you created. If you can't find the joy and the fun in that, then there are better ways to make money. So that is my final tip. And yeah, that's it for the stream. Thank you for all those who logged in. Thank you for all those who are watching this later, listening to me stumble through things. Yes, I did say this was going to be professional. I'll get there eventually. If you want to find my own social media, my website, all those are linked below, as are my books. Check them if you're interested. And I'll see you guys next week. Bye.